Hi, welcome everybody.
No. I'm not the socials. Sorry, we're not moving.
Ooh, lots of people with cameras on. Yay. Muting people. That's what we like. Seeing smiling faces. I'll just wait about 10, 15 more seconds and then we'll get started. Okay. Oh, a few more coming on. Welcome everyone to Series 7 of our Lunch and Learn webinars. So very excited today. We've got Vanessa Wilmot here as the host. I'm Helen, as everyone knows. Lisa, Baxter and Georgia, who's driving a slide, is online as well. Today we're looking at insights to impact data and strategies to assist franchises predict revenue and potential return on investment. So very, very interesting topic. It's hosted by Geotech Information Services, who are our gold partner and have partnered and had a very strong relationship with the FCA for many, many years. And you all know, you all should know, Vanessa Wilmot, the Managing Director of Geotech. We've got this topic on now, and then we've got a bit of a surprise bonus, Women in Franchising, launching the theme and all the dates for, I was going to say February then, August. But August. I don't know why I was thinking that, but for August. And simultaneously, when we launch that, exciting news, Georgia will be opening up registrations at the same time. So very, very exciting times. But without further ado, over to Vanessa. If you've got something to ask, pop it in the chat. Lisa's just put some instructions there and we'll address it as they go. Thanks, Vanessa.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Helen. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be talking to you today about this really important topic. So as Helen mentioned, so I'm the Managing Director of Geotech Information Services. So we're a consultancy that helps companies, including franchise companies, with their growth strategies, network optimization, network planning, using things like data, mapping and analysis. I'm also the chairperson for the FCA Women in Franchising in Australia and serve on the committee for that as well. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, so we've only got a 45-minute session, so we've had to really sort of condense this down because I could probably talk about data and analytics all day if you let me, but I'm going to try and keep it very high level, try and give you some insights on things like what the current challenges are today, why data is really important for franchise systems, how some franchise systems are using data and analysis to help them predict revenue, some innovative data sets, and then we'll go to questions. But if you have a burning question along the way, like Helen mentioned, pop it in the chat. And then we're going to save a little bit of time at the end to go through some of those exciting women in franchising developments. So you have to hang on till the end to hear about those. So basically, data is so important. It's really important to stay on top of your own network trends, and to assess performance. So at a really top line or fundamental level, data for franchise systems, whether it's sales data, customer information, it's a really great indicator or way of staying on top of what your network is doing and to be able to assess performance and success. But it's also really important for any company, but for franchise systems as well, to stay on top of industry trends, because industry trends can have a really big impact on network performance. And by understanding what's happening in the industry, you'll know whether any trends that you're seeing are specific to you or whether it's a broader industry trend or something that's going on in the market that could be impacting on your performance, which could be in either a positive or a negative way. Some of the things that have happened over the years, so we've really had extremely turbulent economic times coming out of COVID-19. So I do have to say I've been doing this type of work for over 25 years, and the last few years we've probably seen the biggest change or inconsistencies in performance across different brands and across franchise systems and within franchise systems that I've ever seen in my whole 25 years plus in here. So it has really, really been very turbulent times. People coming out of COVID, particularly after lockdowns. Some people went on a bit of a cash frenzy, and now we've got, you know, the cost of living crisis, and people are really pulling back. So we've seen some brands really flourish. We've seen some brands really struggle, and even within the same brand, we've seen a lot of really inconsistent performance on a store or territory level as well. Like I said, probably the most sporadic or inconsistent that I've ever seen. Wow. Can't go into something like this without mentioning the cost of living pressures, and unfortunately, they're predicted to stay around for a little while, and this is having an impact not only from a personal perspective for a lot of people, but also from a franchise perspective and from a business perspective. And obviously different franchise systems are being impacted differently because of this. Obviously with the wars and things that are going on, there's a lot of international conflict and the fuel crisis. That's having an impact on franchise systems that are, you know, relying on logistics and fuel and things like that. But it's also having an impact on a lot of people as well. There's also been a lot of changing consumer behaviour. What we found is coming out of COVID is that a lot of people, you know, were turning to more their local with people, hybrid models of working. A lot of those have stayed. People, you know, are not in the office as much as they were maybe in the past, or are doing a bit of both at home and in the office. So it has actually changed consumer behaviour, where this concept of the local has become a lot more important, being your local offering, whether it's a local service that you have, or a local store, local cafe, whatever the case may be. We've also seen that people have probably been less willing to try new things, and when people are spending money, that they're being a lot more selective with their spend, with all these different things going on between the consumer behaviour changes, cost of living pressures, and the international conflict. So people are going out, maybe spending the same when they go out, but they're going out less often, or you know, so they're not spending as much in total. As I mentioned before, a lot of all these different changes has really led to inconsistent growth for a lot of different franchise brands, and probably the most that I've ever seen. Some industries have flourished, like particularly in the home services sector. Some local offerings and food operators have really struggled, whereas some of the major QSR brands, you know, with drive-through or delivery offerings have done great. So it's been really, really all over the place for a lot of different franchise brands. And we couldn't talk about data today without talking about the acceleration in technology and in AI. So this is only set to continue. So really thinking about what the changes in the landscape of technology and what AI is happening with AI means for you and your franchise brand. Now, AI is really an umbrella term, and it's really interesting because the applications of AI are very endless, or can be very different. But it is really important to start thinking about incorporating AI into your strategies as well. So most companies do use data. So every company really has to use data to be successful. And the most common use is data reporting. So whether that's reporting on how your network is doing, what sales stores are doing, how your territories are performing, and so forth. But what we actually find is that only a fraction of companies are actually using data strategically. So that's not just data reporting and saying how everything is going. It's actually using data for forward planning, making significant business decisions, trying to really work out, you know, where you want to position your brand for the future and that sort of thing. It varies across different reports that you read, and it's really hard to pin down, but it's something like 60-70% of companies are saying that they're using things like AI already, or they're using data, but only something like a third of companies are actually using that data strategically, not just for data reporting or data maintenance, but actually using that to make decisions on. So it's been proven that companies that fall behind on data strategy, so they don't just miss opportunities. What actually happens is that without having a database strategy, companies tend to make slower decisions. They maybe have less confidence because they don't have the data, or they're not backing their decisions with something tangible. Therefore, they can run less efficiently and possibly even lose ground to competitors. So if competitors have access to amazing data and are making, you know, a more agile and are making decisions off the back of that data, if you're being slower and not really using the data to its strategic advantage, you could actually be losing ground to competitors, or even worse, making the wrong or costly decisions. So data can actually really, really help with decision making. One of the biggest challenges that we see, and I'm sure many of you on this call today can relate to this, is what we call data paralysis. So unfortunately or fortunately, we're in this era. There was the catchphrase of big data, which was around quite some time ago now, but we're in this era where there is so much data available. It's really hard to know where to turn, and it's hard to know, okay, what data do I need? You know, you could then be drowning in data, and this can then lead to data fatigue. So I bet a lot of you maybe have felt a bit like this this person in the picture. Sometimes, you know, there's data everywhere, insights somewhere. There must be somewhere, you know, that can help me in here. So I could often feel like this, but I would actually be smiling because, you know, I love data and, and that sort of thing. But I do also understand that it can be extremely overwhelming. You know, if you have all these data sets and you're trying to make something of it, what we tend to find is that a lot of companies actually spend more time maintaining data, cleaning data, getting it sorted than they actually do from gaining insights from that data. And if this is you, you are not alone. Even some of the biggest companies that we've come across are in that boat, that they have these massive data sources, massive loyalty programs, access to market data, different information. And part of the problem is that they're just maintaining it and saying, yep, we've got all this data. But they're really losing that opportunity then about the true value of that data is to what can it do for you, or what insights can you gain? So what can you do? I think any kind of data strategy, the number one thing is to have a really clear direction on what you're trying to achieve with the data. Having data for data's sake, that's great, but to really get the advantage, you need to know what you are actually trying to achieve. So everything that you do is supporting that, to support a business decision that you're trying to make. If you have a data analyst internally, if you just let them loose on data sets, they'll just be off in data Disneyland, and you know, you really need to then focus them on what you actually want to try and get out of that. Having data alignment, something that we see in franchise systems and across different organisations is, across different organisations, they might be using different data sets or coming up with a different results because they're using different data or using it in a different way across marketing, operations, and across the analysts and so forth. So it's really having data alignment, having that single source of truth that the company can draw from. So no matter who you ask in the company for something to do with data, that they would pull out, you know, the same result, because particularly if you're going to be making business decisions on that. Investing in a data expert internally, if this is something that, you know, is relevant for your organisation, or you have a big enough organisation to support that. Or the other option is engaging with a third-party consultant who has access to a lot of specialist data sets. Depending on really if you have in-house capability, for what you're trying to achieve, because sometimes it's not worth investing in maintaining data internally. It might be worth investing in a third-party consultant depending on what you're trying to get out of it. And staying informed on what data is available so that you can hopefully incorporate different data sets into your data strategies. Something that's been talked about a lot, and where data can really help, is to do with the changes to the franchising code of conduct, which you would all be aware. So this came into effect not so long ago, where franchise agreements must now provide a reasonable opportunity for return on a franchisee's investment. So what this means is that things like due diligence become a lot more critical in terms of franchisors when they are, getting on board a franchisee. How ROI is going to be measured will need to be determined up front and structured into agreements as well, and then focusing on that transparency between the franchisor and franchisee. Now, I'm a data analyst and a statistician. I'm not a lawyer, so there's plenty of amazing franchise lawyers out there that can talk to a lot of this in a lot more detail. But I guess what my point is that a lot of data can actually help you with getting to that, how you're going to say that you've done your due diligence, or how you're going to measure ROI. There are sort of different data sets that can help with that. There are a lot of situations or external factors, though, that can impact on this. So that can be things like, there's no guarantee of profitability as well in terms of this arrangement. And it's not an excuse as well for less than ideal performance. So if you're giving your franchisees a opportunity or reasonable opportunity for ROI, I mean, if they haven't and you've showed that you've taken the due diligence, then if the franchisee doesn't perform, there could be other factors that can be attributed to. So not letting them just say, oh, well, you didn't give me a reasonable opportunity. It could be that, they weren't operating the hours that you had set. They weren't working their territory as hard as they should be. They might not have been following your franchisor guidelines. So I guess that's something to take into consideration as part of all of this as well. One way that franchise systems are using data analytics to help with providing, to help support them in coming up with ROI, is providing a top-line revenue estimate. So this kind of thing can be done through sales prediction modelling. So using sales prediction models that have been built for any new stores or territories. And what some franchise systems are then doing is using this as the input for the top-line revenue, to then be able to help determine, what the reasonable opportunity or the ROI is from a store or a territory from there. So by understanding, what a store or a territory is expected to do, a lot of companies that we work for don't give this to franchisees. A rare few do, but a lot of franchisors do this kind of thing to have in their back pocket to show that they've undertaken due diligence, that they have, there is a reasonable opportunity for that franchisee to perform. For territory-based franchises, looking at things like analysing of existing territories. So what are the market characteristics of the territories that perform better than others? Are there certain market or demographic skews? Also looking at things like the minimum level of demand in a territory for that territory to be successful. For different systems, that could be a minimum level of working population. If you're a B2B, business-to-business type of offering, it could be a minimum level of population, but also taking into account the types of people that are within that territory, and then using a lot of that analysis and findings to define an equitable or viable territory moving forward. So again, demonstrating the due diligence that can then be used to help with determining, first of all, the revenue potential of that territory, but then that can be used to plug into determining ROI as well. Some companies also do benchmarking. A lot of companies do this internally. So this can be done, something that's done internally or using a third-party consultant. So looking at things like what other franchise in the network will the new franchise be the most similar to? So really looking at things, that are similar from your new store or territory to, what you've already got. Now, there's some really key considerations there. So the first is market size. So at the most fundamental level, looking at the size of the market that store has in its catchment or the territory has, that could be residential and or working population. Something that we say is always factor in market growth, though. This is probably even more so for territory planning, even more so than stores, because if you're defining a territory based on the market size as of today, in the example that's come up, there's 50,000 population. So say your criteria was a territory of 50,000 population, but if we look at the projections in 3 years, that's going to be 70,000 population. So that in effect could have been 1.5 territories, not just one, or maybe 2 even in the future. So that is something to really take into consideration. Looking at the supply versus the demand landscape. So what is the either demographic or the business potential in a particular area? And then what does the supply look like in terms of your own store network and competitors? And is your new store or your new territory in a similar type of area or not? And which store or territory is it most similar to? So, and then another important one is actually looking at delivery demand for a lot of operators now as well. So remembering that for a lot of channels, delivery is as strong a channel as in-store or in-person types of transactions. So really factoring that into your assessment as well, because for some brands it could be adding 50-60% to revenue from delivery or online sales, could be really boosting up those numbers. Other considerations are things like site characteristics and the types of areas that stores are located in for store-based networks. So really benchmarking to see, okay, does this site have a similar store size, similar types of generators? Is it in a similar precinct? So what could I benchmark against to see what kind of sales that store is doing compared to the new store that I'm about to open? Another key consideration that some companies sometimes don't think about up front and think about it in the future, which should really be factored in up front, is levels of cannibalisation or cross-cannibalisation. So with a new territory or a new store that goes in, really considering its revenue potential and its potential for ROI in terms of, okay, this territory or store is going to open and it'll do X, but is there going to be any cannibalisation, or is it going to take away customers from my existing stores or my existing territories? And if yes, what is the magnitude of that cannibalisation or cross-cannibalisation to really work out what the net benefit is? So moving into some innovative data sets. So a lot of companies have begun to use data sets and AI and that sort of thing. So I thought I'd just touch on a couple of some of the more interesting data sets that are now out there. One of them is mobile device tracking. So a lot of this is being used to determine store catchments or territory sizing based on consumer travel patterns and movements. And so the picture that's come up on the left is showing the customer home device location. So then you can use that to come up with, okay, well, what would their likely catchment be? How far are they pulling from? The image on the right is looking at 20 minutes before or after a consumer has visited a specific location. So it could be one of your locations, it could be a competitor location. And this is really valuable to really work out how local or transient a location or a general area is. This can help with cannibalisation. It can help with defining catchments or territory sizing, or it can even just give you insight into the likely composition of consumers coming to that particular location. Are they coming from afar? Are they coming from close by? It potentially could even be used for marketing or where to put signage if you've got a store, looking at the travel patterns and movements of consumers there. The other one is then getting down to a more micro level. So looking at heat mapping of activity. So really looking at what consumer travel patterns and movements are within inside precincts. So the image on the left is a shopping centre, Pacific Epping. So shows where the hotspots and the dead zones are within this particular centre. So if you are a centre-based store, or this could be a retail precinct, it could be a strip as well, it shows where the hotspots and the dead zones are. So you can really see if you're being offered a location by a landlord, you know, is it on the main pedestrian ant trails or is it in a dead zone? But also considering the types of adjacencies for a lot of brands is important too, not just the hotspots. The other really interesting data set is looking at things like a MasterCard merchant activity data. Some different brands get access to things like from the banks as well. So some of those credit card data sets too. So the example that I've brought up is based on MasterCard data. And it looks at over 5,000 precincts across Australia. And the example that's popped up is then zooming in on a more micro level, and really looking at a particular precinct, again, where the activity is, where that precinct is ranked and how it's performing relative to other precincts in the state. And then looking at things like, okay, something that's really important for a lot of location-based franchise systems is spend on by category, because depending on what your offering is, you know, you might, if you're a cafe or a QSR, you might want to be in a precinct that's skewed more towards eating places or has high spend rather than low spend on eating, for example. If you're a fashion retailer, you probably want to be in a precinct that's doing well in apparel, or people are spending lots on apparel. And then there's the bar charts. They're probably a bit hard for you to see, but they're basically showing the time of the day and the day of the week skews. So you can see whether particular precincts are orientated towards morning trade, evening trade, and day of the week trade. So if you're a coffee offering, you probably want to be in a precinct that's skewed towards morning trade, not nighttime. And if you're a big box retailer, you might want to be in a precinct that's got more day trade to tap into, you know, people around work, and then on the week have good weekend trade to tap into DIYers or people doing things around their home on the weekend. So just leaving you with a few thought provokers on this as we close off. Like I said, I could talk about data and analytics all day. So this is a very high level snapshot to hopefully give you a little bit of insight about why data is important, how you could be using it, and just sort of get you thinking about your data strategies. So what data analytics are you leveraging for your franchise system? Are you only data reporting, or are you using it strategically? And if you are only data reporting, what kind of insights or things could you be gleaning from that data? With the changes to the franchising code of conduct, what data and analytics are you using to show due diligence, particularly with this, this whole concept about reasonable opportunity for ROI? How have you adapted to the current economic environment? Can you use data analytics to gain a greater understanding of if there's been any potential changes with your brand, why it may have occurred, and are there industry trends that are impacting on you, or is there something specific happening to your brand? How are international, national and localised issues impacting on your franchise network? With changing consumer behaviour, both business to consumer and business to business, what are you doing to adapt? And how are you using data and analytics to your strategic advantage? So just some thought provokers for you there. So that was a bit of a whirlwind on data and analytics.
Yeah.
And
Okay, go. Everybody answer.
Has anyone got any questions, or anyone like to share any feedback following that?
Yeah, what sort of things are going on in your minds that you'd like to ask Vanessa? Have you tried?
Frankly, I'm terrified you can track me that far.
Yes,
yeah, too true, Charlie.
It's very true.
We know where you are.
I don't need everybody to know that I have 3 meals a day at McDonald's. Thank you very much.
McDonald's will be very happy to hear that.
Yeah,
though.
True. Very true.
Mhm.
Is anyone currently using Geotech for these systems? I'd like to share how they're using it.
Maybe not on the call.
Maybe not. Cool.
No? Would anyone like to use them? Then you've got a question about it. Feel free to ask. That was a lot of
A
information.
lot of information.
Very insightful. Very, very insightful. We've been on a few webinars with data, etc., and this was the most interesting.
Oh, thank you.
So far. I'm always interested in this, anyways.
Yeah.
But like, how are you using, your data to your advantage? Does anybody care to share?
It's really kind of difficult, I must admit, because data, and being a data nerd and data expert myself, it's just infinite, the possibilities. So it's really hard to pinpoint, you should be doing this with this data and that with that. But I guess it's about making sure that you are using data to its advantage, because I have worked with a lot of different companies and working with their data people, and it's a crying shame sometimes about how much data they actually have there. And I just sit there going, wow, you could be doing this with it or that with it. And it's, and I obviously get very excited about that, about not only having data, but what you can do with it. But I guess it is a little bit infinite in terms of what you can actually do, which is why it's so important to pinpoint what you're trying to achieve, and then maybe get the data that to back that up is sometimes a good way. And I'm happy, if anyone on the call wants to have a chat following this as well.
Yeah, I'll send Vanessa's details with the recording. But if you do have those exact questions, Vanessa will be more than happy to answer them for you. And of course, there's all sorts of other layers
Definitely
of information that you can get from one territory, not just the mobile phone, which is a good one to spend, and which way are they driving out and in, but also, close proximity to, other shopping centres, schools, restaurants, all that sort of thing. So excellent. I think you're all very quiet today, but with that, what we will do now is go on to the Women in Franchising information.
All right. So as we mentioned at the start, we've got some really exciting women in franchising developments coming up. So I hope you're all already aware of women in franchising, but if you're not, that we are set up we have a real vision to support and promote women in franchising and women in business. So, and to celebrate the success of women in the franchise sector. And what we try to do is we're trying to provide genuine opportunities and initiatives as well, and networking. So part of that is in terms of events, and we'll go through some exciting upcoming events in just a moment. But we've also been working on some really exciting things over the last couple of months as well. We do have a new Women in Franchising LinkedIn page. So if you're not on that LinkedIn page already, make sure that you get on there, because all our developments and that are coming up for Women in Franchising will be posted on that LinkedIn page. And I'll probably just pause here just to mention that Women in Franchising is for everyone. It's not just for women. It's for everybody. We do get that question sometimes about, if you're not a woman, can you attend the event, or can you be involved? And the answer is yes, definitely. It's open for everybody. So that's probably a really important note as well. We're also pleased to announce that we're launching, or just started releasing, our new podcast series. So episode 1 was released a little while ago, Women in Franchising, Why It Matters. So there was a few of us from the Women in Franchising committee that were on that podcast. There was myself, there was Marcel Lal, who is on the board of the FCA, and is providing a link with Women in Franchising and the FCA board. And we have Emily Lucas as well, who is on the New South Wales State Committee. And, that was talking about why it matters, how you can get involved, and some upcoming things. We're also in the process of filming. We're going to be filming some podcasts while we're at the franchise industry awards, which will then be subsequently released after that to really show different women's journeys in franchising, tips and strategies, and adversities that they've faced and challenges they've faced along the way, with some real life insights into that. So we're very excited, and if anyone on this call today has, wants to be involved or has any ideas, please feel free to reach out on all of that too. We've also got Women in Franchising Month is August. So we've got some amazing events coming up in August. And as the ladies mentioned at the start, Georgia is going to be putting these up live on the FCA website as they're announced. So you can actually start registering for these events already. Yeah. Some of these events in the past have sold out with a week or two to go. So if you are thinking about coming, or if there's people in your organisation you think these events will be suitable for, make sure you get on early because they have been prone to selling out in advance. The first one coming up is in Victoria. It is being held at the Amora River Walk in Richmond on Wednesday, the 5th of August from 7:30 till 9:30. So it is a breakfast event. There is going to be a keynote speaker, Susie Botros from Denver Learning and Development, and she is a resilience and leadership expert. So she's going to share her story, and then we're going to move into a bit more of an interactive session on resilience. So there's going to be some really fantastic takeouts from that. Next up we have is in New South Wales or in Sydney, and we have a Women in Franchising event on Thursday, the 6th of August from 2 till 4:30. It is an afternoon event. I have heard there's going to be some drinks involved, some canapes, and it's going to be at a beautiful venue at HWLE in Sydney in Martin Place, and HWLE lawyers are actually putting towards sponsoring of this event. I think they're sponsoring the drinks. So it's shaping up to be, it's a beautiful venue and shaping up to be a fantastic event. Then we have on the 13th of August a breakfast event from 7:30 till 9:30 in Western Australia in Perth at Mount Lawley Golf Club. It's been announced that Chrissy Mals, the Fremantle Chamber of Commerce, is going to be one of the keynote speakers there. So that's going to be really exciting. Then we have at the Brisbane Marriott Hotel in Queensland, there is an afternoon event on Thursday, the 20th of August. So that's shaping up to be a great event at a beautiful venue too. And the last one for the month will be on the 25th of August in Adelaide, South Australia at the National Wine Centre. A breakfast event, wine and breakfast. So just yeah, that's pretty exciting. 7:30 to 9:30, and Abby Taylor will be the guest speaker there, and Abby's a people and culture expert. So with all of these events, there'll be more details about them released as we move forward closer to those events. But if you're even thinking about coming or know anyone that might be interested in going in your teams or your networks, then make sure that you can, I think you can log on now and start registering. So there you go.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you very much, Vanessa.
Thank you.
And thank you to Geotech. So great. Okay, you didn't have to answer any questions, but you'll get the recording definitely. So our next event, a Lunch and Learn, is in 2 weeks' time. It is going to be hosted by the NAB. Now, this is going to be a straight to you economic update. The economist that is talking on there, I've forgotten his name now. Oops, sorry. NAB has got some information that's coming out by lunchtime. So we've changed the time just for that. It'll be 3:15. So once we get off this, I'll reset that Lunch and Learn for at 3:15. So you'll get a reminder, but it'll be up-to-date economics, so everything hot off the press, hosted by NAB. again, exciting times and exciting times to have this information, really, from all sorts of people that are supporting the franchise community. So from all of us here, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed today.
Great afternoon. Thanks very much.
See you soon.